Now more of the Midcoast Morning Buzz with Richard and Jim. Radio 9, WCME.
With us on the phone is John Cudahy. John is president of the International Council of Air Shows, and he's here to talk about the economic impact of the air show cancellation, which was done in March this year, and what it means for the Midcoast future. John, thank you so much for coming on. I just have initially a first question. On our show back in March was Steve Levesque. He's the executive director of the Midcoast Regional Redevelopment Authority. And he told us his decision to cancel the show was based solely on the U.S. government's indecision to guarantee that the Defense Department would provide any participation at all in the event. And considering the Blue Angels and the Thunderbirds are the main attraction, how is it that your organization can have a successful event without them?
Well, it's very location specific. And in the case of Brunswick, we've got a show that's gone on many years with the Blue Angels. And so when the Blue Angels don't come, people don't come, frankly. And that differs across the country. There are some shows that don't see a jet team every year, and because of that, they've got a history of attracting people even without a jet team. But in every city, the lack of the Blue Angels, the Thunderbirds, or even the single ship demos that many of the shows get has put quite a crimp in the schedule this year. We've lost 60 shows so far around the country. That's about 20%, and we expect the economic impact on the communities where these events are held to be in excess of $1 billion before it's all over.
Well, this cancellation was due directly because of the sequestration. The Defense Department has no money to do this. They felt that it was a needless expenditure, even though it is a wonderful recruiting opportunity for them, but there is no money in the budget. So how do you replace that?
Well, there is, as you know, sequestration has hit most of these services and government agencies with a 10, 15, or 20% cut. What the airshow industry has seen is a 100% cut by the United States military. And what we're trying to argue with Congress and with the military itself is that we completely understand the need for some kind of cutback, but to go from full support in 2012 to literally zero support in 2013 with virtually no notice has been hard for the industry to accommodate, and it's leading to the loss of thousands of jobs in our industry.
So, John, it sounds like you're saying that even though you recognize the fact that the federal budget situation on some level might have been a legitimate factor in not holding the show this summer, or in September actually, it also sounds like you're saying that maybe this was a little reckless in terms of a decision.
Yeah, a little extreme, I think, and I don't want to assume any reasons behind it, but to go from the kind of support that the airshow industry has seen from the military for virtually the last 60 years to zero support in literally a month's time it's been very difficult for the airshow industry to recover from. And we've had, like I said, we've had about 60 shows like Great State of Maine Air Show in Brunswick cancel, and that is having a pretty significant impact on the communities where those events are held.
John, I want to hear, before we go any further, I want to hear a little bit more about the nature of your organization. Now, you're a nonprofit, the International Council of Air Shows. It sounds to me, on first blush anyway, like this is kind of a fan and enthusiast organization. Am I right or wrong about that?
We serve our fans and enthusiasts, but the bulk of our work is done with the professionals who work inside the business. That's the people like the Great State of Maine Air Show organizers, the people who organize and conduct that show, and also the performers who fly at it. For example, the Blue Angels are a member of our organization. Virtually all the civilian performers that would have appeared at the Great State of Maine Air Show are also members, as are the support service providers, the insurance companies and the food concession companies, the fencing, bleachers, that sort of thing. They are all members of our organization. We have about 1,000 members, and we've been in business since 1967 as a nonprofit association.
Well, John, let's hit the tarmac with the wheels here. What is your organization doing to try to get either the Blue Angels, Thunderbirds, or these air shows back up and running? Are you lobbying at all in Washington to Congress, to the Senate, or even to the Defense Department to get these things back up and running?
Yes to all of those questions. We are lobbying to both the Congress and both the House of Representatives and the Senate, and we are also reaching out to DOD. We are making the case that at a time when all of our military is in all volunteer service, it's important to continue to support these events so that citizens have a chance to interact with the military. We hear quite a lot about the 1% representing and fighting for the 99%, and within the airshow industry, there's quite a lot of understanding of that. But what we're concerned about, in addition to the health of our business, we're concerned that when the military cuts these kind of events off, it makes it very difficult for the American public to interact with the soldiers that represent and fight for it. But, so we are talking with the military, and we are talking with our elected representatives in Washington, and we would encourage your listeners to do the same thing, to let them know that these are important events, that some kind of cut is understandable during these difficult economic times, but to go from 100% to 0% in less than 30 days is unnecessary and extreme.
John, perhaps this is the bottom line question that I'm getting to here. When the announcement was made of the cancellation of this year's air show here in Brunswick, we heard some immediate reassurances from Steve Levesque, again, who's been a guest here on more than one occasion, the executive director of the Midcoast
Regional Redevelopment Authority, and we got some other assurances as well that this is not the end of the line for the air show, that it will be back in years to come. But if you were a betting man, would you bet on an air show in Brunswick next fall?
If I was a betting man, I would agree with Steve Levesque. And yes, I don't know specifically what their plans are for the fall of 2014, but I'm hopeful that with the help of your listeners and other people like them around the country, that Congress will begin to see, once the fog of immediate decision-making has lifted and people get to be a bit more thoughtful about what should be supported and what should not be supported, even in these difficult economic times, that the jet teams and the other military participation will once again receive funding, and events like the Great State of Maine Air Show will be able to continue.
Well, I hear you saying you're hopeful, but that doesn't sound like you think it's by any means a slam dunk that there'll be an air show a year from now.
Well, I think most people who pay attention to Washington these days will tell you that there is no such thing as a sure thing anymore. We are working very hard on behalf of Americans and air show spectators specifically to make sure that happens. But frankly, Congress responds to public pressure, and to have these kind of events or to have any kind of sense of what the American public senses as a priority, it requires that the American public speak out. And Congress will react to that kind of pressure, but if no pressure exists, then they will make decisions without that pressure, and we want to make sure that they make the right kinds of decisions.
Final question, John. How is it that business leaders and local folks here in the areas affected by the cancellation of the Great State of Maine Air Show, how can they get involved? Can they do it through your organization, and how can they reach you?
Yes, they can. They can either visit our website at www.airshows.aero, AERO, airshows.aero, and get some information on how to contact their congressional representatives there, or they can make direct contact with either their elected representative in the House of Representatives or one of Maine's 2 senators. As I said, Congress is a group that responds to public pressure, and we need people to make phone calls, send emails, and let people know that this event is important to them, and events like this around the country are important to them.
John Cudahy, president of the International Council of Air Shows. John, thanks for being on the Midcoast Morning Buzz. Keep up the good fight.
You bet. Thank you to both of you for having me.
Radio 9 WCME.